Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm informed by the Director General of the Mauritius Broadcasting Corporation that on 10th of December 2021, a written complaint was made by a member of the National Assembly against Ms. M.J., news editor, senior news editor at the embassy, for misconduct during an official event held on 9th of December 2021. Subsequently, following the advice of the legal advisor of the embassy, an internal inquiry was initiated on the matter, and pending the completion of the inquiry, Ms. M.J. was interdicted from duty with effect from 15th December 2021. The inquiry was conducted by the Human Resource Department of the embassy. On completion of internal inquiry, a report was sent to the board of the embassy on 28 February 2022, together with the charges to be retained against Ms. M.J. as vetted by the legal counsel of the embassy. On 3rd March 2022, the board of the embassy, pursuant to Section 11 of the Embassy Act, approved the setting up of a disciplinary committee to hear evidence, if any, against Ms. M.J. Mr. Speaker, sir, the charges have already been communicated to Ms. M.J., and she was convened to appear before the disciplinary committee on 15th of March 2022. However, at the request of her counsel, the hearing has now been rescheduled for 29th of April 2022. It will therefore not be in order to disclose either the charges preferred against Ms. M.J. or anything in relation to same, including potential witnesses, so as not to prejudice the conduct of the proceedings of the disciplinary committee prior to such hearing. Thank you.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président. Le Premier ministre serait-il d'accord pour dire que les accusations portées contre Madame M.J. révèlent aucune faute professionnelle, dans la mesure où la journaliste est la meilleure juge de ses tâches professionnelles au moment des faits et n'accepte pas de recevoir des instructions d'une tierce personne, et surtout si cette tierce personne est un député.
Monsieur le Président, je ne peux pas commenter sur le fond de l'affaire. C'est, comme j'ai dit dans la réponse, il y a eu une enquête, il y a le board de la MBC qui a pris une décision. L'affaire a été référée à un comité disciplinaire. Donc, ce sera au comité disciplinaire de juger si ce qui a été reproché à la journaliste s'est avéré correct ou pas, et de prendre, bien sûr, ou de recommander des mesures quelconques. Donc, ce serait non seulement, premièrement, je n'ai pas le dossier, et ce serait inapproprié aussi pour moi de venir donner mon opinion. Ce serait comme si je suis en train déjà de juger de l'affaire avant que ce soit jugé par le comité disciplinaire.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président. Depuis des années, c'est une pratique normale lors des fonctions officielles de la MBC que la MBC prenne des déclarations des Deputy Prime Ministers et des ministres uniquement. J'ai occupé le poste de Deputy Chief Government Whip de 2011 à 2014 et j'ai vécu cela. Monsieur le Premier ministre, est-ce qu'un député a le droit de dicter des ordres à la MBC? Et si oui, est-ce que cela s'applique à tous les députés des deux côtés de la Chambre? Merci.
encore une fois, l'honorable membre est en train de dire certaines choses que moi, je peux ni confirmer, ni je peux nier. Ce n'est pas mon rôle de prendre en compte ce qui a été dit par les parties concernées et les témoins et de venir à la Chambre, de venir donner des détails sur cette affaire. Donc, il faut que l'honorable membre puisse comprendre qu'il y a un comité qui va écouter, bien sûr, toutes les preuves, tous les témoignages qu'on va mettre devant ce comité, et c'est ce comité qui va finalement rendre un jugement concernant ces charges qui ont été proférées contre la journaliste.
MP Navarre.
Thank you, sir. Will the Honourable Prime Minister specify what are the charges levelled against Ms. MJ?
Well, I have already answered, Mr. Speaker, sir. In fact, well, let me add probably so that the honourable member will understand. The Attorney General's office has advised that the charges preferred against Ms. MJ cannot be disclosed in view of the fact that the charges are between the employer, that is MBC, and the employee. And these are subject to disciplinary proceedings. So I go according to advice which has been tendered to me.
Honourable Nakshidi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can the Honourable Prime Minister inform the House of the composition of the disciplinary committee that he mentioned was set up? Thank you.
Well, as the regulations of the MBC provide that there should be an independent people should be chairing the committee. So so that I'm informed that the disciplinary committee is composed of the following persons: Maître Angélique A. Deveau de Marigny as chairperson, Mr. Sureklal Lachuman, assessor, is a former director of human resource management, and Mr. Anandraj Sitana, also an assessor, a former human resource manager.
Can the Honourable Minister, Prime Minister at least confirm that the charges were levelled following complaints made by Honourable Danu, the Deputy Chief Whip?
Well, yes, there were a complaint made by Honourable Danu. Yeah.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Premier ministre, ne s'agit-il pas d'un cas flagrant de harcèlement au travail et de persécution contre une journaliste employée par la télévision nationale relevant de votre ministère? Et donc, en tant que Premier ministre et chairperson du comité de haut niveau contre toute forme de violence contre les femmes, ne pensez-vous pas que vous devez intervenir et prévenir toute forme d'injustice contre Madame MJ?
Monsieur le Président, je déplore vraiment la manière de cette question. D'insinuer que moi et le gouvernement, on est contre les femmes, on est en train de condamner le harcèlement des femmes. L'honorable membre sait très bien que ce n'est pas correct. Maintenant, il y a la loi, il y a des règlements, il y a la procédure. Quelqu'un qui est accusé de certaines choses a la possibilité de se défendre devant le comité disciplinaire. Elle a retenu les services d'un juriste. Donc, ce n'est pas à ni moi ni à l'honorable membre de venir prononcer déjà un jugement. Laissons au comité disciplinaire de faire son travail et puis on verra quel va être le jugement. C'est comme si on est en train déjà de dire, soit quelqu'un est coupable ou pas coupable. Mais moi aussi, je peux regarder certains faits et puis me prononcer et d'avoir un jugement. En tout cas, ce n'est pas comme ça qu'on procède. Et il y a les règlements, il y a au moins la possibilité pour que la dame puisse s'expliquer devant ce comité.
This question has sufficiently been canvassed. We move to the next question. Honorable Lobin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. B 435, please.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I am informed by the Acting Director General of the Mauritius Ports Authority that development in the port has at all times been undertaken on the basis of recommendations of a port master plan report, which is updated around every 5 years. The latest port master plan study was commissioned in 2016 for the harbors at Port Louis and Port Maturin to define the land use and infrastructure requirements up to Horizon 2040. In the Port Master Plan Report 2016, it was recommended, amongst others, to implement the island container terminal project adjacent to the existing Mauritius container terminal at Mer Rouge and the fishing port project at Fort William, with both projects comprising the construction of breakwaters. Accordingly, following an international bidding exercise, the Mauritius Ports Authority commissioned in October 2017 a techno-economic feasibility study for the development of the island container terminal. The consultancy contract was awarded to Messrs. Royal Haskoning DHV, a Dutch firm with experience in similar studies. The final feasibility study report for the island container terminal, including the breakwater structure at Port Louis Harbour, was submitted to the Mauritius Ports Authority in March 2019. The report confirmed that the island container terminal project is technically and economically feasible and would protect the Mauritius container terminal from high waves and swells, hence would decrease the downtime at the terminal due to bad weather conditions. The consultants then estimated that the development of the island container terminal would entail a total investment cost of $835 million, out of which $352 million would be for the construction of the breakwater, dredging, and land reclamation works. The remaining components of the project, comprising the construction of the container terminal and associated facilities, as well as mobilization of container handling equipment, was estimated to cost around $483 million. Mr. Speaker, sir, given the significant investment required for the project, the consultants recommended that same be implemented under a public-private partnership scheme and a transaction advisor be appointed who would prepare options for the project financing, assist in the selection of developers, and plan the project implementation. In line with the recommendations of the consultants and with a view to assessing the level of private sector interest in the project, in August 2019, the Mauritius Ports Authority issued an information memorandum to potential investors for a market consultation. At the closing date, on 7th of November 2019, 15 parties had responded to the request for information and expressed their interest. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am also informed by the Acting Director General of the Mauritius Ports Authority that following the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, a decrease in container traffic volume and container vessel calls has been recorded at Port Louis Harbour due to the global economic downturn. Hence, it is considered that the implementation of the project at this stage will not attract the expected interest from potential developers. Accordingly, the Mauritius Ports Authority has deferred the implementation of the project till the recovery of the global economy and the evolution of the regional shipping activities to the pre-COVID-19 trend. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to the fishing port project at Fort William, in the Port Master Plan Report 2016, it was recommended that a breakwater be also constructed to create a sheltered water plane for the mooring of fishing vessels as part of the project. Following an open advertised bidding exercise on 29th October 2018, the Mauritius Ports Authority retained the services of Messrs. CWP Engineering FZ LLC to undertake the consultancy services comprising the technical feasibility, planning, design, preparation of tender documents, and supervision of works for the proposed fishing port. The consultants started activities in November 2018 and undertook various field visits for data collection and submitted their inception report in December 2018. In the light of their assessment, the consultants recommended that fresh bathymetric surveys and geotechnical investigations be carried out to firm up their preliminary planning and designs. It was further recommended that a physical modeling exercise be undertaken in a specialized hydraulic laboratory. Unfortunately, the field activities as well as the physical modeling exercise were heavily impacted by travel restrictions and lockdowns both locally and overseas, which impacted on the smooth implementation of the consultancy services for the project. In October 2021, the consultants finalized the detailed design as well as bidding documents and accordingly recommended a development layout which comprises 1. Land reclamation of about 10 hectares, 2. Construction of breakwater of about 900 meters long, 3. Construction of a 50 meters long service quay and associated dredging works, and 4. Fishing quays totaling 300 meters long to be developed by the private sector. Sorry. The estimated cost for the project was 1.75 billion rupees, out of which the breakwater was estimated at 1 billion rupees. However, in the light of the global economic downturn due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the unfavorable business environment, the Mauritius Ports Authority has decided to postpone the implementation of the fishing port project. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am also informed by the Acting Director General of the Mauritius Ports Authority that the authority is proceeding with the commissioning of a new port master plan study. The study will consider the constraints faced by the port at this stage due to external factors affecting the global and regional maritime sector and reactualize the infrastructural needs to cater for the short, medium, and long-term sport activities at Port Louis Harbour and to make recommendations accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can the Honourable Prime Minister inform the House with regards to the absence of breakwater right now, the cost and losses being incurred by the Mauritius Sports Authority due to increase in swell conditions leading to a very high downtime? Is there a comprehensive study that has been done by the Mauritius Sports Authority to do that balancing exercise that we cannot now proceed with the implementation of construction of those breakwaters?
Well, I must admit that unfortunately, with recent weather conditions that have prevailed, I am informed that this has impacted negatively on the downtime of a number of vessels. So now, whether we have done a study in order to see what has been the loss that we have incurred and the impact of the weather conditions and the wave swells and so on traffic, and on the other hand, the cost of these breakwaters. Well, I don't have information on that, but I believe that I don't think we need to have a consultant to do that. I think at the Mauritius Sports Authority, they can always have an estimate. But again, let me say, earlier at the PNQ, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition was saying that there is a list of so many projects that should not go forward because we are spending billions of rupees. Now, look at, I have mentioned how many billion of rupees these breakwaters will cost. Now, but then, let me say, this is just as a side comment, but I think your question is, of course, has to be taken very seriously because in the light of the impact on traffic, we should obviously see whether we have to go forward with such a project. I have stated, though, that right now the MPA is going to review the master plan because we are in a new situation right now. I think everybody acknowledges that. We have been going through the COVID situation, which has impacted heavily on traffic, shipping traffic, and now with this war in Ukraine. So, because when we look at, I have figures, but I don't want to take the time of the House to mention in what way there has been a decrease in container traffic and in also container traffic to Mauritius. So this has to be looked at very carefully, and we need to be, of course, advised by those experts to tell us in the short term and medium and long term what is being recommended. Then it will be for government, of course, the Ports Authority and government to take a decision.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can the Honourable Prime Minister inform the House the amount paid to the consultant by the Mauritius Ports Authority for the island container terminal and the breakwater project?
Yes, I have this information. I must look for it, maybe if my officer, but I have this information. I undertake to provide the House at a later stage with this information.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can the Honourable Prime Minister inform the House how was Royal Haskoning DHB appointed as consultant for the master plan?
Well, the Mauritius Ports Authority had conducted an expression of interest in March 2014, following which 26 firms responded to the expression of interest, And following the evaluation of those 26 responses, 9 firms were shortlisted to participate in the request for proposal. And the request for proposal for the Port Master Plan study was issued to the 9 shortlisted firms in January 2015. Now, at the closing date in January 2015, only 7 bidders responded to the RFP, namely HPC Hamburg Port Consulting GmbH. The second one is Royal Haskoning DHV Netherlands BV. Third is Ramboll UK Limited. The fourth is ICF International INC. Fifth is Orecon AMEI Limited. Sixth, Louis Berger Group / Lux Consult Mauritius Limited. 7, Worley Parsons RSA Limited. Now, following the evaluation, the contract was awarded to Royal Haskoning DHV in August 2015. In fact, yes, I have the price here, for a contract price of 489,500 euros plus Mauritian rupees, I see 4,036,000, including VAT. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can the Honourable Prime Minister inform the House that this new Port Master Plan will have in its agenda, high on its agenda, the protection of the Terre Rouge Estuary Bird Sanctuary, which is listed as a Ramsar wetland site? Will it be high on the agenda of this new Port Master Plan?
As I say, Mr. Speaker, sir, the Port Master Plan is normally updated like every 5 years, and it has been so around that time period in the past also. But I am sure that, of course, in recommending, the improvement of the port infrastructure, the environmental aspect is always taken into consideration. So you can rest assured that this obviously will be taken into consideration.
Yes, Speaker. Can the Honourable Prime Minister inform the House whether there has been any change in cargo and container traffic following the outbreak of COVID-19?
Well, as I say, I have the figures. In fact, following the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, the total cargo traffic handled at Port Louis Harbour registered a decrease from 8.52 million tons in 2019 to 7.6 million tons in 2021, representing a decrease of 10.7%. The total container traffic, comprising both captive and transshipment containers, decreased from 469,011 TEUs in 2019 to 436,398 TEUs in 2021, again representing a decrease of 6.9%. And total captive container traffic decreased from 276,147 in 2019 to 226,355 in 2021. That is a decrease of 18%. And this decrease in the captive traffic is mainly explained by the significant decrease in laden import and export of containers. However, for transshipment traffic, it has sustained an increase of 8.9%, from 192,864 in 2019 to 210,043 in 2021. Yeah.
Time over. Next question, Honourable Mayot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. B451.
Before Before any reply, let me announce that PQ B441, B444, B446, B439, B440, B443, B450, B437 have been withdrawn. Mr. Phelps.
Mr. Speaker, sir, a technical committee was set up for the implementation of the recommendations of the Commission of Inquiry on Drug Trafficking pertaining to cannabis in September 2020. The committee was chaired by Professor T. Bowron, Executive Director, Mauritius Research and Innovation Council. The report of the technical committee was finalized and approved in November 2021. Subsequently, a steering committee was set up under the chair of the Senior Chief Executive of my ministry to look into the implementation of the recommendations contained therein. As at date, the steering committee has held 7 meetings with a view to addressing the implementation of the 12 recommendations contained in the report of the Technical Committee on Medicinal Cannabis. In this connection, the steering committee has considered the following. First, setting up of a therapeutic committee on medical cannabis. A therapeutic committee on medicinal cannabis will be set up at regional level under the chair of the regional health director, which will endorse all prescriptions relating to medicinal cannabis from both public and private specialists. The use of medicinal cannabis will be started on a pilot basis at Victoria Hospital in the first instance. Second, prescription of medicinal cannabis. Both public and private medical specialists will be licensed to prescribe medicinal cannabis, subject to approval by the Therapeutic Committee on Medicinal Cannabis. Third, training of specialists. Both public and private medical specialists will have to be trained for prescribing medicinal cannabis. The possibility of having recourse to suitable international institutions to provide the online training was explored. A first team of specialists of my ministry who are closely involved at the level of the steering committee will be trained in the first instance. They will follow the UK Medical Cannabis Clinicians Society and an online training program. In parallel, a request has also been made to the World Health Organization to seek appropriate technical expertise to train the specialists in Mauritius to enable them to acquire the relevant knowledge on the use of medicinal cannabis. An expression of interest has been launched on 9 February 2022 for training of specialists both in the public and private sector for them to be licensed for prescribing medicinal cannabis. From the public sector, we have received an interest from 72 specialists, and from the private sector, the list of names has yet to be submitted. Mr. Speaker, sir, in parallel, the report of the Technical Committee on Medicinal Cannabis was uploaded on the website of my ministry. The views of the public were thought thereon through a press communiqué which was issued on 17th January 2022. Views have been received from 5 sources. These have been examined by the technical committee, and a number of the proposals made had already been duly considered by the steering committee, including enlarging the medical indications for treatment with medicinal cannabis, consideration of use of cannabis-based medication from various approved bodies, and availability of medicinal cannabis in public hospital for private patients. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to inform the House that the introduction of medicinal cannabis will necessitate legal amendments to be brought to the Dangerous Drug Act, which are currently under consideration and will be amended in the finance bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, my ministry is fully committed to implementing the recommendations contained in the report of the Technical Committee on medicinal cannabis, and it is worth highlighting that only plant-derived cannabidiol, tetrahydrocannabidiol, and combination of cannabidiol and tetrahydrocannabidiol will be used for medical purposes in Mauritius. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The FDA approval of a drug, that is the data on the drug's effect, which approves the process that takes place within the structure framework that includes, for example, the analysis of the target conditions and available treatment, assessment of benefits and risk from clinical data, and strategies for managing risk. This is what we call the FDA. Can the Honourable Minister inform the House whether his ministry will only procure FDA-approved medical cannabis?
Mr. Speaker, sir, apart from the FDA-approved drugs, I'm also informed that the Steering Committee on Medical Cannabis has also agreed to consider cannabis-based medication approved by the following agencies: the European Medicine Agency, the Health Canada, Therapeutic Goods Agency Australia, and South African Health Products Regulatory Agency.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can the Honourable Minister inform the House whether there has been proposal for the production of cannabis locally?
Mr. Speaker, sir, the local production of cannabis has been taken by different stakeholders, namely the Mauritius Chamber of Agriculture. This entity, the Mauritius Chamber of Agriculture, has in fact proposed to set up a national steering committee comprising of stakeholders from both private and public sectors for the local production of industrial cannabis. The idea is to develop this potentially new economic avenue for the agricultural and pharmaceutical industries. This steering committee on medical cannabis is in favor of collaborative work with the Ministry of Agro-Industry and Food Security.
Can the Honourable Minister inform the House on the proposed prescription validity of medical cannabis?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. So this medication will be, as per the section 18.4 of the Dangerous Drugs Act of 2000, the prescription limit for Schedule 2 drugs items is 10 days. Now, however, the Technical Committee on Medical Cannabis has recommended to amend the DDA by increasing prescription limits from 10 days to 14 days, because medical cannabis products come in packages of 14 and 28-day supply. So the House will note that in other countries, the prescription limit is of 28 or 30 days for medical cannabis. In Mauritius, we are adopting in the first instance for a more cautious approach.
Thank
you, Mr. Speaker. There is some concern among clinicians with regard to the implementation of prescribing cannabis. Will the Honourable Minister see with his relevant technical committee that the list of medical conditions and symptoms or conditions that are to be prescribed cannabis be circulated to avoid abuse, knowing quite well that even the treatment with medical cannabis has led to substance abuse and addictive conditions?
Mr. Speaker, sir, the technical committee, as a recommendation, I will just inform the House that there are only few conditions that have been given approval for the use of medical cannabis, namely the spasticity associated with multiple sclerosis, nausea, vomiting side effects associated with cancer chemotherapy, chronic neuropathic pain unresponsive to conventional treatment, and treatment-resistant symptoms in palliative care oncology. So these are the indications where this medication can be prescribed in the first instance.
Next question.
B452, please.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the International Women Entrepreneur Show was organized by the International Women Entrepreneur Society from the 19th to the 20th of October 2021 in Dubai. I was accompanied by a delegation comprising of Mr. N.L., the Acting Deputy Permanent Secretary of my ministry, Mrs. F.M.C., the Chairperson of the National Women Entrepreneur Council, and Mr. N.S., Advisor on project matters at the level of my ministry. As to part B of the question, Mr. Speaker, sir, the IWES is an international platform that promotes business activities of its members around the UAE. It is a strong network of women entrepreneurs of the UAE that meets, exchanges ideas, come up with new strategies and partnership among other women entrepreneurs. The IWES is an annual event, Mr. Speaker, sir, and I was invited as a keynote speaker to address the audience of women entrepreneurs of the UAE for the 2021 edition. My intervention was based essentially on the ease of doing business in Mauritius. This was a side event to the Dubai Expo 2020, and it was an excellent opportunity for Mauritius to be in the limelight and have a more focused international visibility through the event per se, and also through the various media coverages. The aim of my visit, however, was mainly to lay the foundation for a wider networking and cooperation between women entrepreneurs of Mauritius and those of the UAE, and to invite women entrepreneurs from those sides to come invest, work, and live in Mauritius. A follow-up was ensured with the IWES Society, and one main outcome was the organization of the Women Entrepreneur Inter-Regional Business Exchange Meeting, UAE-Mauritius, which was held on the 10th of March 2022. This inter-regional business exchange was carried out online. The event was attended by some 60 participants from Dubai and Mauritius. Women entrepreneurs from the NWEC, the National Women Entrepreneur Council, the Association des Femmes Chefs d'Entreprise, SME Chambers, We Empower participated in this event. Likewise, women entrepreneurs from various business fields like jewelry, wellness, management lawyers, investment companies, representatives working in Dubai, UAE, the Middle East, actively participated in this event. The Director of Industry from the Economic Development Board made a presentation on investment opportunities in Mauritius during that business exchange. Mr. Speaker, sir, this first Women Entrepreneur Inter-Regional Business Exchange meeting will be followed by other regional business exchange meetings where Dubai entrepreneurs will also be invited, thus building blocks for more regional to global networks. This will address an urgent need for our women entrepreneurs to go global as our market will open up for them. As a follow-up of that inter-regional forum, my ministry has proposed that a memorandum of agreement be prepared and signed between the National Women Entrepreneur Council of my ministry and the IWES to reinforce the collaboration between UAE and Mauritius.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président. La ministre, dans sa réponse, nous a dit c'est suite à une invitation qu'elle s'est rendue à Dubaï. Est-ce qu'elle pourrait, dans un premier temps, déposer à la Chambre le carton d'invitation à cette exhibition? Special guest, et elle a même fait un discours là-bas. On aurait bien aimé qu'elle dépose l'invitation. Je trouve quand même... je voudrais demander à la ministre d'informer la Chambre le nombre de femmes entrepreneurs qui faisaient partie de la délégation, surtout que cette mission a coûté la somme vertigineuse de 677 000 roupies aux contribuables.
Mr. Speaker, sir, for the first part of the supplementary question addressed by an honourable member, I will very happily give her a copy of the invitation forwarded to me by the International Women Entrepreneur Society. As to the second part of her supplementary question, I was accompanied by the chairperson of the council itself, considering that she is the one who leads the Council of Women Entrepreneurs. She was already the focal point representing the women entrepreneur in Mauritius, and myself being the minister in charge of that portfolio. So there were no actual need for our women. It was a first invitation to that show. Outcome, I have lengthily canvassed on the outcome.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honourable Minister, can you inform the House how many women entrepreneurs got the opportunity to display and participate in the Dubai Expo?
Mr. Speaker, sir, the International Women Entrepreneur Society show of last year was not a platform for our women entrepreneurs to go and display their products, because this was the first meeting that the National Women Entrepreneur Council of Mauritius had undertaken with this International Women Entrepreneur Society. Henceforth, thanks to the good work being carried out by both parties, both stakeholders, my ministry and my offices, there is a forthcoming memorandum of understanding that will then allow our women entrepreneurs to display their product on the Emirati market.
Last question.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président. C'est quand même choquant d'apprendre qu'aucune femme entrepreneur ne faisait partie de cette délégation. Je trouve ça franchement scandaleux. Et donc, finalement, ce qu'on comprend, rien pour les femmes entrepreneurs, le jackpot est juste pour la ministre. Un per diem de 131 000 roupies 516 pour 2 jours à Dubaï, franchement scandaleux. Amusez même. 6 months. 6 months.
Are you putting a question?
No, yes, I'm coming with a supplementary question. I'm coming, Mr. Speaker.
Put the question.
6 months after the 4th edition of the International Women's Entrepreneur Show in Dubai, would the Minister inform the House what are the benefits for our local women entrepreneurs, surtout qu'elles souffrent énormément ces derniers temps? Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I deplore the manner in which the honourable member has put a supplementary question. I understand that she's hell-bent on finding shortcomings and faire la sensation qui m'en a amusé. Listen, allow me to reply. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. The work is being carried out. This was a first opportunity for us to touch base with...
Now, be careful. You should allow the reply to come.
It was a first opportunity. There was no point
I
of...
take note for the next time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for allowing me to reply to the supplementary question, which I hope the member will be gracious enough to listen to. This was the first opportunity for the National Women Entrepreneur Council to get in touch with the stakeholder, the International Women Entrepreneur Society, a very first for our women entrepreneur in Mauritius, a very first. So that to extend their visibility on an international landscape, there would have been no point taking along our women entrepreneurs. This is the stepping stone to extending their products to a more visible international landscape. Therefore, the benefits are going to be very, very obvious once we have the memorandum of understanding and once the work carries on the way we are doing it right now. All to the benefit of our women entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Table is advised that PQB 466 will be replied by the Minister of Finance. 470 will be replied by the Attorney General, Minister of Agro-Industries and Food Security. That PQB 462, B508, B471, 480, 487, 507, 500, 517, 478, 523, 509, 510, 516, 483, 499, 520, 485 have been withdrawn. Honourable members, I'll suspend here for 1.5 hours.